Let me begin with respect, because respect is the only posture that allows truth to enter without resistance. What you're about to hear is not meant to impress you, entertain you, or emotionally manipulate you. It is meant to interrupt you. This is one of those messages that doesn't clap for you. It confronts you. And if at any point you feel uncomfortable, that discomfort is not an attack, it's an invitation. Most people don't struggle with believing in God. They struggle with letting God be God. They love Him as Savior, but hesitate to honor Him as Lord. They pray with passion, sing with emotion, and listen with attention. But when obedience demands sacrifice, silence replaces surrender. That's where the pain begins. This message is painful because it exposes something we rarely want exposed. Control over money, control over decisions, control over timing, control over outcomes. We say we trust God, but we still want the final say. And the moment God's instruction touches what we love, what we fear, or what we depend on, we start negotiating instead of obeying. This is not a message about how much you give. It's about who you trust. It's not about religious duty. It's about spiritual order. Because disorder always produces frustration. Misalignment always produces pressure. And many people are tired, not because life is hard, but because life is out of order. Some of you have prayed prayers that haven't been answered yet, not because God is ignoring you, but because obedience is missing, and that truth hurts. It hurts because it removes excuses. It hurts because it removes blame. It hurts because it brings responsibility back to where it belongs. Now listen carefully. If this message speaks to you even a little, don't stay silent. Engagement is not about algorithms. It's about agreement. I want you to like this video as a sign that you're open to truth, even when it's uncomfortable. I want you to share this message with someone who's praying for breakthrough but needs alignment. And in the comments, don't just write, "Amen." Write this sentence clearly: "I choose obedience over comfort." Write it not for me, but for yourself. Because what you declare publicly, you're more likely to live privately. This message is not here to condemn you. It's here to call you higher. Because the door you've been praying for is not locked. It's waiting on obedience. Obedience hurts because it exposes who is really in control of your life. Obedience hurts not because God is cruel, but because obedience pulls the mask off, whatever has been sitting on the throne of your heart. Obedience is uncomfortable because it forces a confrontation. It forces you to look at what you say you believe versus what you actually follow. When God speaks and your first response is calculation, hesitation, fear, or justification, pain rises. Not because obedience is wrong, but because resistance has been ruling longer than you admitted. Most people love the idea of God being a provider, a protector, a blesser. Very few love the idea of God being a commander. Obedience is where belief stops being poetry and starts becoming proof. It is easy to say God is first when nothing is being demanded. It is easy to worship when it costs nothing. But when obedience requires movement, release, surrender, the heart reveals its true allegiance. Obedience doesn't ask how you feel. It asks who you trust. And trust is tested when something you value is placed on the altar. The reason obedience hurts is because it threatens comfort. It interrupts habits. It disrupts control. Control is addictive. Control makes you feel safe. Control convinces you that as long as you manage everything, nothing can collapse. Obedience shatters that illusion. The pain of obedience is the pain of dethronement. Something must step down for God to take His rightful place. For some people, it's money. For others, it's pride. For others, it's fear disguised as wisdom. Obedience exposes what you protect the most, whatever makes you argue with God. Delay God or reinterpret God. That thing is not neutral, it is competing. You can shout amen and still resist instructions. You can serve publicly and disobey privately. Obedience doesn't respond to crowds, it responds to conviction. And conviction hurts when it contradicts your lifestyle. That's why obedience feels like pressure. Pressure reveals structure. Weak foundations crack under pressure, strong foundations adjust. Obedience strips away excuses. It removes the comfort of blaming circumstances. You can't say, I would obey if things were better, because obedience is rarely convenient. Obedience often shows up when the numbers don't add up, when emotions are unstable, when logic feels safer than faith. That's why obedience feels violent to the flesh. It challenges who has the final say. You don't truly know what rules you until God asks you to move in a direction that threatens your sense of security. Obedience exposes whether God is your authority or your advisor. An advisor can be ignored. Authority cannot. Many people consult God but submit to fear. They pray but still decide. They listen but don't follow. Obedience hurts because it demands alignment, not agreement. You can agree with God and still not obey Him. Agreement lives in the mind. Obedience lives in action. And action costs something. Obedience is not loud. It is costly. It doesn't need an audience. It only needs surrender. The pain is proof that something is being challenged. Obedience wouldn't hurt if nothing was resisting it. The resistance reveals attachment, and attachment reveals lordship. Whatever you refuse to release controls you more than you want to admit. Obedience forces the release. That's why obedience always comes before breakthrough. Because breakthrough without obedience would make you powerful without being submitted. And power without submission is dangerous. So obedience hurts first. It presses first. It squeezes first and exposes first. And only then does freedom begin to breathe. You don't lack money. You lack alignment. And misalignment is expensive. Most people think their problem is income. They believe one opportunity, one raise, one deal will fix everything. But money doesn't fix misalignment. It only magnifies it. If alignment is missing, more money only creates more chaos. Financial pressure is often not the absence of money, but the presence of disorder. Misalignment drains resources silently. You don't see it as rebellion. You see it as stress. You don't label it disobedience. You label it struggle. But misalignment always produces friction, and friction always costs you something. Peace, clarity, progress, rest. Alignment is when your actions agree with your beliefs. Misalignment is when your mouth says God is first, but your decisions say survival is first. Misalignment is when faith is preached, but fear is practiced. And fear is expensive. Fear makes you hold what you should release. Fear makes you chase what you should attract. Fear makes you work harder, but move slower. You can make money and still be misaligned. You can be busy and still be off course. Misalignment doesn't mean inactivity. It means direction without order, motion without authority, effort without covering, and that kind of effort leaks. It consumes energy without producing results. Alignment brings efficiency. Misalignment brings exhaustion. That's why some people are tired all the time. Not because they do too much, because they do too much out of order. Order reduces resistance. Alignment removes strain. When your life is aligned, provision flows with less effort. When it's misaligned, even small progress feels heavy. Misalignment is expensive because it creates hidden costs, anxiety, overthinking, stress spending, emotional decisions, fear-based choices. You spend money trying to compensate for peace. You spend energy managing consequences instead of building momentum. God doesn't bless confusion, He blesses order. Order is alignment in motion, and alignment starts with obedience. Obedience is the real currency. Money follows structure. Provision follows principle. Overflow follows order. You don't need more money to fix a disordered system. You need alignment, because alignment doesn't just change what comes to you. It changes what stays with you. Many people earn, but don't retain. Increase comes but disappears. That's not bad luck, that's misalignment. Misalignment makes you reactive instead of intentional. You respond to bills instead of building vision. You chase needs instead of stewarding purpose. Alignment slows panic and sharpens focus. It removes unnecessary pressure. The most expensive thing in your life is not a lack of resources. It is living out of order. Because when you're out of order, everything costs more emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Peace becomes rare. Clarity becomes foggy. Decisions become heavier. Alignment doesn't mean perfection. It means submission. It means letting God define sequence. First things first, order before overflow. Obedience before abundance. Money is not attracted to hustle alone. It is attracted to systems that can sustain it. Alignment builds those systems. Misalignment destroys them quietly. When alignment returns, resistance reduces. When resistance reduces, momentum increases. When momentum increases, provision becomes consistent. But as long as misalignment remains, you will keep paying for things you were never meant to fund. Stress, fear, confusion, delay. Because misalignment always sends the bill later, and it always costs more than you expected. God doesn't test your faith with words. He tests it with instructions. Most people think faith is proven by what they say. They believe if they speak positively, quote scripture, or agree verbally, heaven is impressed. But faith that stays in the mouth never moves the hand. And God does not measure faith by confession alone. He measures it by compliance. Instructions are the language of heaven. When God speaks, he does not ask for applause. He looks for alignment. Instructions are uncomfortable because they remove ambiguity. Words can be interpreted, debated, spiritualized. Instructions are clear. Do this, move there, release that, stop this, start that. Instructions force a decision, and decisions expose priorities. That's why people love sermons, but resist instructions. Sermons inspire, instructions interrupt. God never tests faith in areas that don't matter. He tests it where obedience costs something real. That's why instructions often target your habits, your money, your time, your comfort, your control. Faith that doesn't change behavior is admiration, not trust. Trust moves. When logic hesitates, trust obeys before understanding arrives. Instructions are dangerous to pride. Pride wants to be consulted. Pride wants explanation. Pride wants to feel intelligent and involved. Faith submits without full visibility. Obedience does not require full clarity, only confidence in the one who speaks. That's why instructions feel risky. They force you to lean on God instead of your own calculations. Many people claim they are waiting on God when God is waiting on them to follow what he already said. Silence from heaven often follows ignored instructions, not because God is distant, because repetition would be wasted. Instructions ignored today become delays tomorrow, and delays compound. Faith is not proven in emotional moments. It is proven in ordinary decisions. When no one is watching, when there is no applause, when obedience feels small but costly, instructions reveal whether faith is situational or rooted. Real faith does not need urgency to act. It responds to authority. God does not give instructions to control you. He gives them to protect you. Instructions carry foresight. Obedience today prevents pain tomorrow. Disobedience feels free in the moment, but expensive later. Instructions are preventative, not restrictive. They are roadmaps, not punishments. Every instruction carries a seed. Obedience activates what prayer alone cannot. Many people pray for outcomes but ignore instructions tied to those outcomes. They want results without responsibility. But heaven operates on order. Instructions establish that order. Faith that ignores instructions eventually becomes frustration. 'Cause you cannot outpray what you refuse to obey. God will not override your will to bless you. He honors obedience more than enthusiasm. Instructions reveal maturity. Immature faith wants excitement. Mature faith embraces discipline. The moment you treat instructions casually, you demote God from authority to suggestion. And suggestions are optional. Authority is not faith that only listens but never moves as admiration disguised as devotion. Instructions are the checkpoint. They separate hearers from followers. They reveal whether faith is active or theoretical. Every time you delay obedience, you choose comfort over covenant. Delay always feels harm. It disguises itself as wisdom, timing, preparation, patience. But delay is rarely neutral. Delay is a decision. It is the decision to protect comfort while postponing commitment. Covenant demands movement. Comfort demands pause. And every pause weakens momentum. Delayed obedience is disobedience. Wearing polite clothing, it avoids confrontation. It avoids sacrifice. It avoids risk. Delay says yes with no intention of moving now, and heaven responds to movement, not intention. God does not honor plans to obey. He honors obedience. Comfort is subtle. It doesn't scream rebellion. It whispers caution. It convinces you that later will be better, safer, clearer. But obedience rarely becomes easier with time. Fear grows when fed. Resistance strengthens when accommodated. What you delay today becomes harder tomorrow. Covenant requires trust. Comfort requires control. That's why delay feels safe. It gives you time to stay in charge. Obedience transfers control. Delay keeps it. Comfort wants guarantees. Covenant requires surrender. And surrender is immediate, not scheduled. Delay costs more than obedience ever would. It costs peace. It costs momentum. It costs clarity. It creates internal tension because you know what you should do but choose not to. That tension drains energy. It creates restlessness. That's why people feel stuck even when nothing is wrong externally. Every delayed instruction compounds pressure. The longer you wait, delay gives fear time to negotiate. Fear will always provide reasons. Delay strengthens excuses. Obedience silences them. Comfort thrives in delay. Comfort tells you to stay where you are because at least it's familiar. Covenant pulls you forward into unfamiliar territory. Comfort values safety. Covenant values obedience. And what you value determines what you choose. Delayed obedience sends a message to heaven. It says God's instruction is optional when inconvenient, and optional obedience produces optional results. Covenant blessings follow covenant behavior. Comfort keeps you fed but not fulfilled. Delay creates spiritual numbness. The longer you resist obedience, the quieter conviction becomes. Not because the instruction disappears, but because your sensitivity dulls. Delay trains your heart to ignore urgency. And when urgency is gone, discipline follows. Immediate obedience keeps alignment sharp. It keeps momentum alive. It keeps trust active. Delay introduces friction, adds unnecessary weight. That's why people feel tired before they even start. Delay drains energy before obedience ever happens. Comfort never leads to growth. It maintains. Covenant stretches. Stretching is uncomfortable, but expansion requires it. Delay avoids stretching. It preserves current limits. Obedience breaks them. Every time you delay, you teach yourself that comfort outranks obedience. And what you practice becomes pattern. Patterns shape destiny. Covenant moments are time-sensitive. They require response, not reflection. Comfort always asks for more time. Covenant asks for now. Delay is the enemy of transformation. Obedience activates change. Delay postpones it, and postponed obedience postpones everything connected to it. Clarity, provision, peace, momentum. Because covenant rewards movement and comfort rewards nothing. Giving leftovers reveals a heart that still serves fear, not God. Leftovers feel safe because they don't threaten anything. They don't challenge priorities. They don't require faith. Leftovers are what you give when you've already taken care of yourself, already secured comfort, already satisfied desire. And that's why leftovers are never sacrificed. They are evidence of what comes first. Giving leftovers is not about amount. It's about order. It shows what you protect and what you postpone. Fear always wants assurance before obedience. Fear says, make sure you're okay first. Faith says, obey first and trust God with the rest. Leftovers are fear's compromise. They let you feel generous without ever feeling vulnerable. You don't give leftovers to what you value most. You don't offer leftovers to what you honor. You don't give leftovers to what you trust. You give leftovers to what you tolerate. And when God receives leftovers, it reveals that He is still competing with fear for authority in your life. Fear disguises itself as wisdom. It says you're being responsible, cautious, practical. But responsibility without obedience becomes self-preservation. And self-preservation always resists surrender. Leftovers protect you from risk, but they also block you from reward. Leftovers say, I'll give if I have extra. Faith says, I'll give even if it costs me. One is conditional, the other is covenant. Covenant giving doesn't wait for comfort. It moves because obedience demands movement. Leftovers never stretch trust. They never test dependence. They never force you to rely on God. That's why leftovers keep you stuck at the same level. There is no expansion without tension. There is no growth without release. And leftovers release nothing that matters. Fear loves leftovers because they keep control intact. Control is fear's currency. As long as you decide what stays and what goes, fear feels safe. Faith transfers that control. Faith puts first things first, and first things cost more. You don't accidentally give leftovers. You choose them. You choose to prioritize certainty over obedience, and every time you do, fear tightens its grip quietly, not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to keep you from stepping fully into trust. Leftovers feel harmless, but they train the heart. They teach you to hold back. They reinforce the belief that God must prove Himself before you fully obey. But faith never waits for proof. Faith responds to instruction. When you give leftovers, you are not protecting yourself from lack. You are aligning yourself with it. Because leftovers come from scarcity thinking. They come from the belief that what you have is all there is. Faith believes there is more. Fear believes you must cling. Leftovers never change atmosphere. They never activate heaven. They never challenge the status quo. They maintain it. And maintenance is not multiplication. Maintenance keeps you surviving. Faith moves you forward. God never asks for leftovers. He asks for first. First requires trust. First requires priority. First requires surrender. And surrender always exposes what you truly serve. You cannot pray your way out of a problem you disobeyed your way into. Prayer is powerful, but prayer is not a substitute for obedience. Prayer invites God's will. Obedience aligns you with it. Many people pray for relief while continuing the behavior that created the pressure. They want divine intervention without personal correction. But heaven responds to alignment, not contradiction. Disobedience creates systems of resistance, and prayer alone cannot dismantle what obedience alone can fix. You cannot ask God to bless what you refuse to bring into order. Prayer without obedience becomes noise, not because God is offended, but because the system is misaligned. Most frustration comes from praying for outcomes while ignoring instructions. You ask for peace but refuse discipline. You ask for provision but resist order. You ask for breakthrough but cling to habits that block it. Prayer is not magic. It does not override principles. God will not rescue you from consequences. You are still choosing. He is not cruel. He is consistent, and consistency protects the integrity of His word. If prayer could replace obedience, growth would be optional and character unnecessary. Many people are tired of praying because nothing changes. But nothing changes because nothing changes. Prayer is meant to empower obedience, not replace it. Prayer sharpens sensitivity. Obedience proves sincerity. You cannot disobey in action and obey in prayer. Heaven reads movement more clearly than language. Your choices speak louder than your requests. And when choices contradict prayers, heaven honors choices. Disobedience doesn't always feel rebellious. Sometimes it feels familiar, comfortable, normal. That's why it's dangerous. It blends in, and prayer becomes a way to cope with discomfort instead of correcting it. Doesn't ignore prayers. He honors structure. He responds to order. When order is restored, flow returns. When obedience realigns you, resistance breaks. Prayer becomes effective when it is partnered with movement. You can't pray for harvest while refusing to plant. You can't pray for healing while ignoring discipline. You can't pray for increase while rejecting instruction. Prayer does not cancel cause and effect. Obedience reshapes it. Disobedience creates cycles. Prayer without obedience keeps you cycling instead of progressing. You revisit the same issues with different words, same prayers, same frustrations, same delays. Not because God is slow, but because alignment is missing. Obedience shortens the distance between prayer and answer. Disobedience lengthens it. Prayer opens communication. Obedience opens doors. And doors must be open to walk through. God is not moved by repetition. He is moved by response. When response is absent, prayer becomes ritual. And ritual without obedience has no power. The fastest way out of a problem is not another prayer. It is a corrected step. Obedience doesn't feel spiritual, but it produces spiritual results. It restores order. It silences chaos. It removes resistance. Prayer prepares the heart. Obedience moves the feet. And problems created by disobedience only dissolve when obedience returns. Money becomes a curse when it replaces God as your source. Money was never designed to lead you. It was designed to serve you. The moment it becomes your source, it gains authority. It was never meant to have. What you depend on directs you. What you depend on disciplines you. When money becomes your source, your decisions stop being guided by obedience and start being ruled by fear. Fear of losing it. Fear of not having enough. Fear of tomorrow. And fear is a terrible master. Money promises security but never delivers peace. It can cover bills, but it cannot calm a restless soul. It can buy comfort, but it cannot buy confidence. When money replaces God, pressure replaces trust. You start measuring life by numbers instead of direction. You start asking what pays more instead of what aligns more. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin serving what you were supposed to steward. A source determines your posture. When God is your source, you stand in faith. When money is your source, you live in anxiety. Anxiety comes from believing you must hold everything together yourself. And money demands that kind of attention. It makes you feel responsible for outcomes only God can control. When money becomes your source, generosity feels dangerous. Obedience feels risky. Giving feels like loss instead of alignment. That's when money stops being a tool and starts being a trap. It tightens your grip while shrinking your trust. You work harder but rest less. You earn more but worry more, because money can never satisfy the role of provider without punishing you for it. Money becomes a curse not because it is evil, but because it is insufficient to carry divine responsibility. It was never meant to replace faith. It was never meant to sit on the throne. When it does, everything else bends around it. Time, relationships, priorities, decisions, and anything that controls everything eventually controls you. God as your source brings peace. Even when resources fluctuate, money as your source brings stress. Even when accounts are full, that's how you know who you're serving. Your source is revealed by what calms you and what terrifies you. If losing money shakes your identity, it has already taken a position it doesn't deserve. Tithing isn't about money leaving your hands, but what finally leaves your heart. The real battle of giving is not in the wallet. It is in the heart. Hands only follow what the heart has already decided. Tithing doesn't remove money from your life. It removes fear from your faith. It confronts attachment. It exposes dependency. And that exposure is uncomfortable. The heart holds tighter than the hand. The hand releases when the heart lets go. Tithing forces the heart to loosen its grip. It challenges the belief that what you have must be protected at all costs. It teaches the heart that provision flows from obedience, not possession. Fear lives in the heart. Control lives in the heart. Scarcity lives in the heart. And tithing confronts all three at once. That's why it feels heavy. That's why it feels personal, because it is. It's not about the amount. It's about the surrender. Tithing reorders the heart. It places God first without negotiation. It removes the illusion that money is earned alone. It reminds you that breath, strength, opportunity, and favor cannot be purchased. And when the heart recognizes that, giving becomes alignment instead of loss. When the heart releases, peace enters, not because money increased, but because fear decreased. Tithing doesn't make you rich overnight. It makes you free over time, free from anxiety, free from hoarding, free from the pressure to self-provide. The heart that holds tightly never rests. The heart that trusts deeply does. Tithing trains the heart to trust before it sees. It teaches faith to move first. And when the heart shifts, everything connected to it shifts as well. Heaven responds to obedience faster than it responds to desperation. Desperation cries loudly, but it has no authority. It begs, it pleads. It hopes emotion will move what alignment alone can activate. Obedience, on the other hand, speaks quietly and moves powerfully. Heaven recognizes order. It responds to structure. It responds to alignment. Desperation is a reaction to pressure. Obedience is a response to instruction. Many people think intensity equals faith. They believe tears, long prayers, and repeated words will accelerate answers. But heaven is not persuaded by volume. It is persuaded by submission. You can be desperate and still be disobedient. And desperation without obedience produces noise, not movement. Obedience creates access. It opens pathways, it removes resistance. Desperation highlights need but does not change position. Heaven responds to position. When you are aligned, flow increases. When you are misaligned, pressure increases. Desperation comes from misalignment. Obedience corrects it. God does not rush because you are overwhelmed. He responds when order is restored. Obedience is the fastest way to reestablish order. That's why small acts of obedience can produce sudden shifts. They realign you with systems already in place. Heaven doesn't build new systems for every crisis. It waits for alignment with existing ones. Desperation often bypasses responsibility. It wants relief without correction. Obedience accepts correction without complaint. That's why obedience carries authority. Authority always moves faster than emotion. Heaven responds to what carries authority. Obedience shortens delays. It eliminates unnecessary resistance. Desperation keeps you stuck in reaction mode. Obedience moves you into alignment mode. Reaction drains energy. Alignment restores it. That's why obedience feels stabilizing even before circumstances change. You don't have to convince heaven of your need. Heaven already knows. What heaven looks for is response. Obedience is proof of trust. Desperation is proof of pressure. Pressure alone does not unlock provision. Heaven honors what agrees with it. Obedience agrees. Desperation argues. It asks why. It asks how long. Obedience moves without explanation, and movement is what heaven follows. Breakthrough is waiting on the other side of the obedience you keep postponing. Breakthrough is not distant. It is delayed by hesitation. It stands on the other side of a decision you keep revisiting instead of making. Obedience is a doorway. Delay is a lock. The longer you postpone, the heavier the door feels. Most people think breakthrough requires more effort, but often it requires one corrected step. One act of obedience can unlock what years of struggle could not. Because struggle without alignment multiplies exhaustion, not progress. Postponed obedience keeps you circling the same terrain. You move, but you don't advance. You stay busy without crossing thresholds. Breakthrough requires crossing, and crossing requires decision. Fear loves postponement. It convinces you that waiting is wisdom. But wisdom moves when instructed. Postponement feeds fear. It gives fear time to grow explanations. Obedience starves fear. It moves before fear gains momentum. The breakthrough you want is connected to the obedience you avoid. Not because God is withholding, but because alignment is missing. Alignment releases what is already prepared. Provision waits on positioning. Postponement creates spiritual traffic. You feel crowded mentally, overloaded emotionally. That's the weight of unfinished obedience. It occupies space. It steals clarity. It slows momentum. Every delayed instruction piles up not in heaven but in you. Tension builds conviction, presses, and peace remains just out of reach. Obedience resolves that tension. It brings release before it brings reward. Breakthrough is not random. It follows order. It follows response. It follows obedience. When obedience happens, movement accelerates. Resistance reduces. Clarity sharpens. The door does not open because you knock louder. It opens because you step forward. Obedience moves you forward. Postponement keeps you standing still, and standing still feels safe, but it keeps you on the wrong side of the door. As we come to the close of this message, I want you to hear this with the same respect I began with. Breakthrough is never found standing still. Standing still may feel safe, but safety is the enemy of obedience. And obedience is the gateway to the life God has promised you. Every delay, every hesitation, every compromise you've allowed has been keeping you on the wrong side of the door. And that door only opens when you step forward in faith. The truth is painful, but it is powerful. You cannot outpray disobedience. You cannot outhope hesitation. You cannot outcry fear. Heaven responds to alignment, not emotion. It responds to action, not anxiety. The moment you choose obedience over comfort, the moment you prioritize God's instruction over your own reasoning, that is the moment momentum begins to move in your favor. This message is not here to guilt you. It is here to wake you up. It is here to challenge you to reorder your priorities, to let go of fear, to release what you have been holding too tightly, and to step into a level of trust that produces results beyond imagination. Every principle we discussed, the power of obedience, the danger of delay, the need for alignment, the liberation in tithing, and the authority of following instructions is connected. When you apply these principles, life stops being a struggle and begins to be a system of blessings. If this message hit you, if it stirred something inside, take action today. Stand, move, release, obey, and remember this channel exists to bring you truth without compromise and faith with structure. Support the channel, share this message, and stay connected because every principle we share on Myron Golden Track is designed to help you align, grow, and position yourself for breakthrough. That last, the door is open. Are you willing to step through? I want you to pause and really hear me today, because what I'm about to share could change everything in your life. I know some of you have been waiting. You've been praying, hoping, believing, and sometimes doubting. You've been pouring your heart into God, crying in the silence of your room, asking, when will my breakthrough come? You've watched doors close, opportunities pass, and others move forward while you feel stuck, overlooked, and forgotten. And in that waiting, the pain has been heavy. The burden has been almost unbearable. The nights have been long, and the tears have been countless. But hear me today, your waiting is not a sign that God has forgotten you. Your delay is not a denial. It is preparation. God is working behind the scenes, aligning your life, arranging every circumstance, and preparing you to receive a breakthrough so powerful that it will astonish you what you've endured. The setbacks, the tears, the struggles, they have all been shaping you to handle what is coming. And before we dive deeper into this message, I want to share something exciting with you. In the upcoming days, we will be launching a new finance channel. This channel is going to bring you practical, faith-driven strategies, wealth-building principles, and life-changing guidance to take control of your finances and build the future you've been praying for. If today's message inspires you, I want you to prepare to support this new channel. Subscribe, share, and help us grow so we can reach more people ready to transform both their spiritual and financial lives. Your support will be a part of launching something that can change countless lives. Now, as you open your heart, I want you to understand this truth clearly. The tears you've shed, the pain you've felt, and the struggles you've endured, they are not wasted. God's delay is not denial. It is preparation for your breakthrough. Today, I will show you how every setback is a setup, every struggle is a seed, and every tear is a testimony waiting to be born. God's delay is not denial. It's preparation for your breakthrough. I know that sounds hard to believe when your heart is heavy, when your spirit is weary, when every day feels like you are running in place and nothing is moving. I know some of you have been praying for months, maybe even years, waiting for doors to open, waiting for situations to shift, waiting for God to move in ways that seem impossible. And every time it doesn't happen, it hurts. It pierces your soul. It makes you question your faith, your value, and even whether God really sees you. But let me tell you something you must understand today. The very waiting, the very delay is not because God has forgotten you. It's because He is preparing something so monumental, so life-changing that if it came too early, you would not be ready for it. You see, God is not in a rush, but He is in control. And sometimes the way He works is the exact opposite of what your human mind expects. You think delay is disappointment. You think silence is rejection. You think seasons of struggle are punishment. But the truth is that every delay carries purpose. Every silent moment carries instruction. Every closed door carries the blueprint for the door that will open. When God seems quiet, it is not because He has abandoned you. It is because He is shaping you, molding you, and aligning your life to match the destiny He has already written for you. Many of us have fallen into the trap of impatience. We see our friends succeed, we watch others receive blessings, and we begin to compare ourselves. Comparison is dangerous because it blinds us to the process God is using in our own lives. You cannot measure your timing by anyone else's journey. What God has for you has your name written all over it. And if He brought it too soon, you would not recognize it. If He delivered it too early, you would not handle it. If He gave it without preparation, it could be wasted, mismanaged, or even rejected. That is why God allows delays. That is why He tests your patience, stretches your endurance, and strengthens your faith in ways that feel painful, uncomfortable, and even unbearable at times. And that leads me to the second truth. The pain you're feeling is shaping you for your destiny. I want you to really hear that every tear you've shed, every sleepless night, every moment of hopelessness, it is working in your favor. Pain is not meaningless. Struggle is not pointless. Every difficult season is God's way of preparing you to operate on a higher level than you ever imagined. The person you are becoming through these trials is not the person who will merely survive your breakthrough. It is the person who will thrive, dominate, and steward it, while pain is the refining fire that removes the impurities from your character. It strips away excuses, pride, and dependence on anything or anyone but God. It forces you to confront yourself, to dig deep, and to develop the resilience that cannot be taught in comfort. Think about it. Diamonds are not formed by ease and comfort. Diamonds are formed by pressure and time. Your breakthrough is no different. What you are enduring right now is the pressure that is forging the strength, wisdom, and spiritual maturity you will need to walk fully into God's promise. If you try to rush the process, if you try to skip the preparation, you risk stumbling when the blessing finally arrives. God's delay is actually a blessing in disguise because it gives you time to become the person capable of handling what is coming. I know it hurts. I know your heart aches when the world seems unfair, when doors close, and when prayers seem unanswered. I know the loneliness of waiting, the despair of feeling overlooked, the temptation to give up when you see everyone else moving forward. But I am here to tell you that every hardship, every setback, every moment of suffering is an instrument of divine design. It is God's hand, not His absence, shaping the future you cannot yet see. You must trust that He is faithful. You must believe that your delay has purpose. You must understand that the pain you are experiencing is temporary, but the strength, wisdom, and breakthrough that it produces will last a lifetime. The waiting is not a curse. The struggle is not a punishment. The pain is not random. It is divine preparation for a destiny that is bigger, better, and more powerful than anything you have dared to imagine. So today, I want you to stop seeing your delay as denial. Stop believing that your pain is meaningless. Stop thinking that your struggles disqualify you. The very thing that feels like the end is actually the beginning. The very thing that seems unbearable is actually shaping you for the life, the purpose, and the miracle that God has already written for you. And when it comes, it will overwhelm you. It will astonish you. It will make every tear, every heart itchy, and every lonely night worth it. Every tear you've shed has been a seed for your miracle. I want you to stop and think about that for a moment. Every time your heart broke, every time your spirit was crushed, every time you cried alone in your room, those moments were not wasted. They were not meaningless. They were not signs that God had abandoned you. No, the very tears you thought were evidence of defeat are actually evidence of God's preparation. Every drop of sorrow, every sigh of disappointment, every silent prayer whispered in the dark has been planting a seed for something greater than you can imagine. Some of you have been through pain so deep it feels unbearable. Maybe it was the betrayal of someone you trusted, the loss of a dream you worked for, or the heartbreak of watching life pass by while you struggle. And in those moments you ask God, why me? Why is this happening to me? But I want to tell you the truth. God is not blind to your suffering. God is not unaware of your tears. He is not just watching you. He is using every one of those tears to cultivate the miracle that is about to enter your life. The seed has been planted, watered by your pain, and is now growing quietly in the soil of divine timing, preparing to bloom in ways that will leave you amazed. Pain is a universal language, but it is also a powerful tool in God's hand. It teaches lessons that comfort never can. It builds character that ease cannot produce. It strengthens faith that privilege never produces. And most importantly, it prepares you to receive your miracle. The very things you have endured, the very tears you've cried are part of God's investment in your life. You see, God's miracles are never random. They are never arbitrary. They are not given to the unprepared. And the preparation often comes in the form of pain, of struggle, and yes, even of tears. Waiting does not mean God has forgotten you. Let me say that again. Waiting does not mean God has forgotten you. I know how tempting it is to look around and compare yourself to others. To watch as life seems to move effortlessly for some while you feel stuck in a season of silence. I know the loneliness of waiting. The fear that maybe your prayers are unheard, the despair that whispers, maybe it's never coming for me. But that is the lie of the enemy. God is never late. God is never absent. God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't match your calendar. Waiting is not a denial of your miracle. Waiting is the proof that God is orchestrating it, lining it up, and ensuring that when it comes, it will be powerful, lasting, and beyond what you could have ever imagined. Too often, we try to rush God. We try to force answers, push doors open that are not meant to open yet, and chase after things that are not aligned with His plan. And in doing so, we miss the beauty of His timing. There is a divine order to every season. There is a reason for every delay. There is a purpose behind every tear. The waiting season is God's classroom. It is where patience is cultivated, where faith is strengthened, and where endurance is forged. What feels like silence is actually preparation, shaping your character and refining your spirit to match the miracle that is coming. I want you to consider this. If God answered your prayers too soon, without the preparation, without the tears, without the struggle, would you truly value the blessing? Would you handle it with the wisdom, humility, and strength that is required? The answer is no. That is why the waiting, the pain, and the tears are necessary. They are the divine tools that shape you into the person capable of receiving, stewarding, and walking in the fullness of what God has for you. You have been planting seeds in your season of waiting. Every moment of faith, every prayer, every tear, every act of obedience, they are all seeds. Some of you may not see the growth yet. Some of you may feel that nothing is. He is watering those seeds with His Spirit, giving life to what you cannot see, preparing the soil for your miracle to flourish. And when the time comes, the harvest will be abundant, overflowing, and unstoppable. Do not despise your tears. Do not resent your waiting. Do not grow weary of the struggle. They are your preparation. They are your investment. They are your proof that God has not forgotten you and that He is about to do something extraordinary in your life. The seed of your miracle has already been planted, watered by your pain, and nurtured by your faith. And the harvest is coming. Your setbacks are setups for a greater comeback. I want you to hear that with every fiber of your being today. The times you feel defeated, the moments when life seems to push you to the ground, The days when it feels like nothing is working, those are not the end of your story. They are the preparation for a comeback so powerful, so unexpected, so life-altering that when it arrives, the world will stand in awe. Every failure, every rejection, every closed door, every plan that didn't work out, every dream that seemed lost, they are not accidents and they are not punishments. They are divine setups. God is using what feels like setbacks to position you for a future so magnificent that it will make all the pain worth it. I know some of you have experienced failure after failure. Maybe it's been in your career, your finances, your relationships, or even in your spiritual walk. And after each setback, the enemy whispers, "You'll never succeed. You'll never recover. You're not enough." But I want you to know today that those voices are lies. God is using every closed door, every disappointment, every trial, and every delay to cultivate strength, wisdom, and faith in your life. What seems like the end is actually the beginning of a story of triumph that only those who endure, only those who trust, and only those who refuse to give up can experience. Setbacks are powerful teachers. They teach lessons that success cannot teach. They show you your weaknesses so you can become stronger. They expose your limits so you can learn how to overcome them. They break pride and self-reliance so that faith can rise in its place. And most importantly, setbacks are reminders that you cannot do it alone. You need God. They are a divine call to lean harder on Him, trust Him more, and believe in His plan even when the path seems unclear. Every setback is an opportunity for God to show His power in your life, to reveal that what the world considers a failure is actually the foundation for your greatest victory. Faith in silence produces the loudest miracles. This is a truth that most people will never understand because they are always looking for immediate results. They are always seeking confirmation, validation, and evidence before they believe. But the greatest miracles in history, the ones that changed destinies, were birthed in silence. Abraham waited decades before Isaac was born. Joseph suffered betrayal, imprisonment, and false accusations before he was elevated to the highest position in Egypt. David ran from Saul before he became king. Waiting, enduring, and trusting in silence is where faith grows strongest, where character is formed, and where God prepares you to receive blessings that will surpass all human understanding. I know it is hard to wait. I know the silence is deafening. I know the feeling of being overlooked and forgotten can be crushing. You look around and see people being promoted, blessed, and celebrated while you are still in the shadows. But silence is not emptiness. Silence is the space where God works unseen. It is the laboratory where He prepares your miracle, aligns the people, resources, and circumstances, and orchestrates every detail of your destiny. Faith in silence is not passive. It is active. It is persistent. It is unwavering. It is saying, "God, even though I cannot see it, I believe it. Even though it has not happened yet, I trust it. Even though the world says no, you say yes, and I will stand on your word." Those who cannot endure silence will never experience the magnitude of what God has in store. Miracles require patience. Miracles require belief that defies what the eyes see. Miracles require trust when the heart is aching. The louder the silence, the louder the breakthrough will be. The longer the wait, the greater the reward. And the deeper the setback, the higher the comeback. Faith that is tested in darkness shines brightest in the light. It is the faith that continues to praise, continue to pray, and continue to trust in the absence of evidence that produces miracles so powerful that even the heavens celebrate. Setbacks in silence are not obstacles. They are signals. They are signals that God is working, aligning, and preparing. They are proof that your life is in the hands of a divine architect who is orchestrating every detail, every closed door, every moment of pain, every season of doubt, every setback, every tear, every silent prayer. God is using them to position you, mold you, and prepare you for a comeback that is beyond anything you could plan, beyond anything you could imagine, and beyond anything you could create on your own. The struggle you hate today is the strength you will celebrate tomorrow. I want you to feel that deep in your spirit because it is a truth that can change the trajectory of your life. The moments that seem unbearable, the battles that leave you exhausted, the trials that make you question your purpose, they are not in vain. Every struggle is a classroom, every hardship a lesson, and every challenge a training ground for the power and resilience that you will need in the season ahead. I know it hurts. I know it feels unfair. I know you wonder why some people seem to glide through life while you fight uphill every day. But I want to tell you today that the very weight you feel is producing a strength you cannot yet see, a strength that will become your testimony, your weapon, and your platform. Pain has a purpose. Struggle has a design. It is in the heat of trials that character is forged. Patience is strengthened and faith becomes unshakable. The things you hate enduring right now, the nights of worry, the loneliness, the rejection, the financial setbacks, the doubts in your own heart. These are the very things that will prepare you to handle more than you ever dreamed. The strength that comes from struggle cannot be bought, borrowed, or faked. It comes from enduring, from persevering, from standing firm. When the world tells you to quit, and when the breakthrough comes, it will not only reward you, it will reveal to you just how powerful you have become through the very struggles you despised. I know some of you have been fighting battles in silence. You've been praying, seeking, and working, but it seems like nothing is moving. And the temptation is to give up, to settle for less, to compromise your faith, because the struggle is too heavy. But let me remind you that God never wastes a struggle. Every trial, every test, every moment of adversity is a seed of strength planted deep within your soul. And when the breakthrough arrives, you will look back and say, it was worth it. Every moment of pain, every tear, every sleepless night, I needed it to become who I am today. What feels like delay, what feels like disappointment, what feels like rejection, it is not random. What feels like waiting is actually divine timing in action. You see, God is orchestrating your life with precision. Every setback, every closed door, every season of silence, every unanswered prayer is part of a master plan that you cannot yet fully understand. Waiting does not mean denial. Waiting does not mean God is absent. Waiting means alignment. Waiting means preparation. Waiting means that when the right moment arrives, everything will be in place for your miracle to unfold perfectly. Divine timing is perfect.